So we might have some people still coming in, but I suggest that I just open it up already. So first of all, welcome everybody, all our members. Welcome to one of the yearly traditions within the IJOC, which is the case study seminar. One of the main targets we have in our club is to train and coach people and try to learn from each other. And I think this traditional webinar is giving a good impression on how we can learn from each other. We're also very happy for the first time, I think. We did kind of a new thing, and we are very happy that we have some other course directors this time stepping in also to share their knowledge with us. So very much welcome to David Isler, to Karoli Fugli, and to Maria Hernek. So we have found two jumping judge course directors and also one jumping steward course director to help us this year in this webinar. They have been looking into the cases just like you have been looking into them. And as you know, we had around 9 cases. We had different teams working up front to discuss the items. We had 3 specific cases around stewarding, and they will be in detail discussed by Maria. We have the other cases specifically around the ground jury topics, which of course will then be handled by Karoli and by David. Thanks again, the 3 of you, first of all, to help us with this seminar. My apologies for the noise that might be here because I'm currently officiating at the show as well. So I'm here in a quite noisy situation, but nevertheless, more than happy to join and to assist. This being said, I hope you will enjoy today the session, and I think I can hand it over to Ali, who will be coordinating the remainder of this session. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoy it.
So thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much for the introduction. As usual practice, we will leave the floor to our speakers, the course directors. And to this end, I should mention that we start with case number 1 and response number 1, etc. The moderators, where relevant, they can raise their hands and provide feedback into the question or provide more background information. That is also possible. We presume the total length of the session will be around 1 hour or maximum, let's say 1 hour, 15 minutes, depending on the discussions. Of course, the more interactive, obviously, the better, but let us see how we can go through. So, starting with the case number 1, I believe it is a judging question. So I will be looking at David and Karoli for the first response.
Okay, do we read the question or?
I can share on the screen if you wish the question itself. If you give me one moment, I will try to share it.
And what do we do with the answers from the groups? Do they get to respond or?
First, let me show the question, and then I can read the response of the group 1 regarding the case 1, or you can just give a reference mentioning that they have proposed this as a decision, etc., etc. Totally up to you.
Okay.
First of all, let me to welcome everyone, and I would like to ask David to lead these discussions as I'm sitting in the car between 2 flights and I had a 5-hour delay, so apologies not to be really prepared with my tablet. But I would like to ask David to lead, and I try to do my best to contribute.
Okay. Okay, so the first question. So CSI 2-star jump off class, 1.35 m in height. It is not the Grand Prix nor the class with the highest prize money. The only 2 athletes that are qualified for the jump off ask permission not to participate in the jump off. As the sponsors of the class are present, the grand jury decides not to permit it and insists that they must participate. The first athlete after the bell crosses the start line pulls up at the first obstacle. On the second attempt, he pulls up again. The second athlete does the exact same thing. The ground jury's decision. So group one, actually, I think group one answered it very well. My belief, and this is a belief, not a rule, but my belief is you never force a horse rider athlete to participate when they do not want to. We don't know what the conditions are, so that's kind of going to be a moot point, but I think, but when riders do not want to participate, I think the worst thing you can do is force them to. By withdrawing their distributing the prize money less than the first place or first and second place, you are essentially forcing them if you allow them not to participate. So I think the answer for is correct. The riders will be placed equal first with the prize money of first and second place combined and then divided between the two. There's a trophy that can be done by a draw or by lot. I would not give a sanction or a warning. I think that just that can just get turned into further complications.
Okay.
If I may add something, there are a few things missing from the case. Just the presence of a sponsor cannot be enough to try to force them. So we should know about the circumstances, but it shouldn't be based on the presence of a sponsor. So I fully agree what just David said.
Right. Thank you. Any other comments? I'm also trying to read out if there's any questions, etc. But I believe I should also be reading out the responses of the groups for each case, so that when we go to the next one, so to question number 2, so that our members should also hear what the response of that group was. So if I may go to the next question. Just 1 minute, please. Let me read out the question first, and then I will read out the answer of that group number 2. So the question number 2 was, the starting bell rings and the countdown begins. With about 15 seconds left, the athlete approaches the start. For reasons unknown to the ground jury, the horse resists in the last few meters before the start, and the athlete decides to circle before the starting line. He manages it at the very last moment, and the jury can clearly see that the horse does not cross the start line. However, the time has begun because the horse's tail has, and the judges do not immediately notice it, has activated the start when making the turn. The athlete continues on course after a short circle. The ground jury does not give 4 penalty points for a refusal because they do not consider it as a second crossing of the starting line. However, the horse went to the first obstacle with the time running, thus giving him time penalties. The athlete asks the time penalties to be taken away. How does the ground jury handle this? So this was the question number 2, whereas the answer of the group number 2 was as follows. As judges, we should know how the timekeeping devices used in the FEI events work. The features which are relevant and will help to solve the case are the following. First, the device registers the time every time the beam is interrupted, and this is displayed, including the number of the beam, on the printout in the chronological order. Secondly, to make the calculation of the time of the course, the device uses only the passages through the cells that have been activated as start and finish. This can manually be corrected to another passage through the same cells and is marked with a special sign on the printout. Third, there's a function called false start, and by pressing it, the start is aborted, still registered though, and the countdown continues from where it was stopped. It was obvious that in this instance, it was not used. The question hinges on how we can find or calculate the correct time of the athlete's course. We assumed from the description given in the question that upon investigation of the ground jury ascertained that the time started before the correct passage of the athlete from the start. Also, there is no mention of timing equipment problem or failure. So we assumed that the timing devices were registering everything correctly. As the ground jury, once we are sure for the mistaken start, we will take as start time what the device shows as the second passage from the start line, and the start will be manually corrected to this passage. We make, or the device makes, the deduction, and we have the correct time of the course. As no refusal was registered from the ground jury, we presume that the J2 started timing when the athlete really started. That is, when he crossed the start line with red on their right and white on their left. The final time will be checked on the corroborated against the time of the J2, and the J2 should have written his own time on his list. This corrected time may or may not have time penalty points. As a ground jury, we will adjust the result according to the correct time, and this will be announced over the loudspeaker system. We discussed and agreed that the ground jury should have realized that there was a discrepancy in the measuring of time, as it is obvious that the J2 time would have been notably different than the time on the device. We discussed and agreed that J2 should have noted this discrepancy between his or her time and the time of the device, and that the time should have been adjusted then. That is before the athlete makes the request. We agreed also that when the athlete makes the request, there should be a polite answer. We are looking into it and ask him to exit the ground jury room, in case the request was done in person to the ground jury. And when the result is adjusted, this should be announced through the system, system. As a recommendation, we can add that the president of the ground jury and also, I think it's an MJC, should have a professional dialogue with the timekeeping person so that he alerts the ground jury when he sees something that seems out of the usual, such as time stopping too soon or the time starting too soon. Of course, the timekeeper is not a judge, but it is good to have a good communication with them, and a lot of mistakes can be saved in that way. So I presume I will be speaking during the rest of this night in this way, but this was the answer of group number 2.
I think
David?
they answered it beautifully.
Yeah.
Everything they said is correct. The one thing, this is a judge's best friend, stopwatch. And I always insist that no matter what anybody is doing, whether they're the president of the class, calling faults, running, whatever the case may be, everybody carries a watch. If everybody carries a watch, you don't have issues.
Correct.
I mean, there's one official backup time, that's for sure. J2 would be the official backup time, but sometimes they can make a mistake as well. So if everybody's got a stopwatch, somebody's going to have the correct time when all things go to hell. But they answered everything beautifully. The impulses from the timing equipment, you can always find the correct time by using the checking the impulses on the day and the date.
By the way, just small note, we are also live now on our Facebook group, and people can also watch through the live stream on our Facebook page. Of course, it's open to members. Should we go now to question number 3? If there are no other questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So-
have nothing to add to this.
All right. Question number 3. Let me read out the question number 3 first, and then the response. Unfortunately, regarding the case number 3, we did not receive the response from the moderator or from the group. So we would appreciate if there would be any feedback from this group or the moderator of the group. So let me read out the question first. It is a CSIO 4-star competition counting for the Longines ranking category B. Total prize money, 128,819 euros, including the 2 new cars with a customer value of 49,200 euros. I would rather not to provide any name of the brand for the car, and 33,700 euros for the second place. Again, it's a car. So there are 2 cars to be given. After the Grand Prix, the winner can contact the car dealer through the show office. The chart to be used is number 2, which means it is 33% to the winner. And the prize money amount for each athlete placed 13th and beyond is 25 euro. There were 45 starters in this class. And the question is, please provide the final prize money and prize in kind to all placed riders. So this was actually a prize placement question. So I leave the floor to David.
Okay, I have to be honest, when I read the question, I had no idea what was being asked. So I am still a little confused about the question, I have to say. And Carola, you can jump in here and help me out.
I mean, same. I mean, it is in the schedule, the first place, the second place, and all the rest in cash. That's it.
In the meanwhile, maybe I can already text to the originator of the question and ask to provide further feedback. Would that be possible? And we can skip to
That would be fine for me.
number 4 while waiting for the feedback on that one.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Okay, I'm fine with that. Yes.
Okay. So then let me read out question number 4. And that is a children rider. A 14-year-old rider has just finished her round and is leaving the arena when the horse latches onto another obstacle and takes off to jump it. The rider is taken unaware and is unable to stop the horse from jumping the fence in the wrong direction. There's a cameraman on the other side of the fence who has to dive out of the way. The rider has finished her round and recorded a time. She had no intention of jumping another fence, but was clearly unable to stop the horse from doing so. What would you do and why? So then let me open the response of group number 4. If you can give me 2 seconds, I will put it up. So here is the response of group number 4. I will not read out their same question format, but they have already provided the rule text about eliminations and disqualifications. Obviously, inside the eliminations, it is clearly stated that jumping an obstacle in the wrong direction is covered inside the elimination. However, they've already mentioned that inside the jumping rules, there are also sporting spirit and manners compatible to the fullest extent. So here is their answer. Most of the group would not take any action and would proceed with the result determined by the participant. We assume that the competitor tried everything as described to prevent the horse from jumping the fence from the wrong side. We are dealing with the preamble of the jumping regulations, so we'll have an official result and continue with them. They've mentioned a preamble about the articles, and they mentioned the following. every eventuality cannot be provided for in these jumping regulations. In any unforeseen or exceptional circumstances, it is the duty of the appropriate person or body to make a decision in a sporting spirit, meaning in favor of the rider and the horse, by approaching as near as possible the intention of the jumping regulations and the general regulations. Should there remain any omissions in the jumping regulations, such omission shall be interpreted in a manner compatible to the fullest extent with the other provisions of these jumping regulations, other rules and regulations of the FEI and sporting spirit. There's a note saying a few group member will eliminate the athlete according to the jumping regulations, Article 241.3.27. But from the response, we understand that there was not a unanimous decision. Most of the group members were saying that this should be in favor of the rider, whereas a minor group of members would say to eliminate the athlete according to this rule. So this was the response of group number 4. Any additional comments, Karoli, David?
Yeah, David first, and then I join
Okay.
the discussion.
I don't think Article 241.3.11, jumping the obstacle in the wrong direction, is even pertinent. It doesn't matter if they jumped it in the correct direction or the wrong direction. The fact is they jumped the fence after the completion of a round. And I would go with the minority of the group, and I would have to eliminate.
So do I. So do I.
It's the rider's responsibility to have control over the horse. The rule about jumping an additional jump, that is something like a 2-phase competition. I believe that's why that rule is there, and not for someone who has no control over their horse.
And that's also a lot of subjectivity in the statement behind the question that the rider did everything he could. How can you really check it that he has done everything? I mean, but regardless from that, I fully agree with the minority and with my fellow course director member friend.
Okay, so I understand that you are in favor of the elimination response rather than, okay.
Absolutely.
So it's very good to be interactive like that. So thank you for the response. And if there's any other, please do comment on the question and answer sessions, please. By the way, I do see a note from Teresa Perez de Miranda for group number 3. She said, I'm part of this group and sent the calculations by email to our moderator. So if the moderator is here, Marisa, we would appreciate to have the response of the group while waiting. So should we move forward to case number 5 in that case?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, so let's see. Just 1 minute, please. Question number 1 is about a CSI 1-star. Oh my goodness, it's a long one. So please bear with me. I'll try to be fast. And I will also try to put this on the screen so that you can see the question. Can you see the question on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is a CSI 1-star with 2 phases, 274.1.5.3. Both phases against the clock, and it is a 1.30 meter competition with more than 100 competitors. Combination X crashes in the first phase at fence number 5, and all poles and wings are on the ground. Finishes the first phase and is not allowed to start the second phase. Fence number 5 is rebuilt, and the assistant course designer signals to the ground jury that the fence is correctly rebuilt. The bell is rung, and the next competitor, Y, starts his course. Meanwhile, there's some discussion between the audience and the course designer, not visible to the ground jury. Competitor Y jumps the first phase and knocks down a pole at fence number 5. At the finish of the first phase, the president of the class rings the bell to signal that the combination is not allowed to start the second phase. A spectator comes immediately into the jury box and tells the ground jury that fence number 5 was rebuilt too high. The assistant course designer admits that the fence was in fact rebuilt 10 centimeters too high, 140 instead of 130. Also, the competitor is looking to the ground jury, complaining about the fence and the incorrect height. What will your action be as the president of the ground jury? So this was question number 5. And I can also read out to you the response of group number 5. Our opinion. Oh, group number 5. Really, thank you very much for this very short and brief response. Let me read it. First, the ground jury should confirm with the course designer that the obstacle number 5 was wrongly built, which is 10 centimeters plus. And if it was, secondly, the ground jury should speak with the rider and tell him that this is an exceptional circumstance and assume that he had only that fault on that obstacle. By the way, the ground jury should consider that the first phase was completed with no faults, and he should be allowed to do only the second phase. So this was the response of group number 5. Any comments?
I'd like to commend the spectators being so knowledgeable.
Sorry?
I'd like to commend the spectators for being so knowledgeable.
Yes,
Yeah.
congratulations to the spectators.
Absolutely. I'm afraid I'm fully disagreeing with the group answer on that.
Okay, can you please provide
Yeah.
feedback into that?
If there is any discrepancy with any of the fences during the round, the athlete should stop, raise the hand up, and should show to the grand jury that there is something wrong with one of the fences. And if he take it, he has to go with it. It's the same like when there is a obstacle not rebuilt and there is the pole behind and he's jumping and making a mistake on it. In my view.
Okay,
I found this to be a very,
I don't know how David see the situation.
I found it a very difficult. It's I wish I was there when it was happening. 5 centimeters is, or 10 centimeters is only less than 4 inches. It's when you're on a horse, I think it's very difficult to see
Yeah,
that fence is wrongly built. I would have to say, I don't want to say definitely. I probably, just reading the way this took place, I would probably not count the rail. But I don't want to say that. I'm sorry to be so great about this. It's just very difficult because you're not there to see the whole thing, to witness the circumstances. But I would probably not count the knockdown. Probably.
I think that is one of the good sides of this session, because we, with all independent ideas into the session, are freely discussing all these points. And please note that these cases have happened. So they are all real cases. It did take place at some point somewhere. And that's why we're discussing them, because to most of them, there is not one clear answer. We, as the judges or the stewards, will try to come up with the closest to the, let's say, correct decision. But this is the good side of it that we're discussing in this platform.
Yeah, with this theory, I have a few problems. So first of all, when I was competing to jump a 130 or a 140 fence, that was visible, even if it is just 4 inches, whatever. That's point 1. Point 2, guessing that if it is 10 centimeters lower, then he or she can jump it. That's also leads somewhere where I don't want to go. Third question, what about the others? what about the other riders behind this rider when he's jumping a clear round in the second phase? So it's an absolutely unfortunate situation, but the damage limitation, in my view, is to keep the faults for the first phase, not to jump the second phase. That's what I would do, definitely.
Okay, unless there is any other remark, David, do you have any remark?
No, I mean, I understand completely what Karoli is saying, and I don't disagree. These are the kind of things, though, that's why you can't write a rule for something like this, because you have to use your judgment
I love the equitable solutions when this is not creating any damage of the other athletes who jumped clearly. So I mean, we have to have a look at least from two different directions on that. It's no question. It's a very unfortunate situation. However, that I would stay with that one, with that solution I just mentioned a minute ago.
Okay, in the meantime, I will just call out to the originator of the question in case if he or she has additional feedback or information about the case, we would appreciate it. And we can always come back to it whenever relevant. So if there is no other questions, let me just check the Q&A text from the members, unless there's any other thing. So we have two options. There's a question saying, what would be the decision if this happens at the very beginning of the class and it is obvious only after the first 5 riders have finished their course? So he takes the question and elaborates further, saying 5 riders already competed with this height, and then we realize. Any feedback into that?
Wow.
I mean,
So
and
then
then I have additional questions. What happened with these athletes? Did they jump clear in the first phase, or they had a fault at that specific fence or somewhere else, maybe after or before?
Yeah.
So
or a refusal at this fence, etc.
Yeah, or right after, because the horse was very sensitive, jumped the 10 centimeter high, and then the horse thought that, okay, I'm not gonna jump anymore that big height, so he stops at the next fence. Yeah. I mean, there are plenty other questions.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, David. Go ahead.
No. Continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I mean, we can create many more questions on that. If the first 5 has jumped it, then we have to correct it, keep what we have, and that's it.
Yes, if it was like that from the start of the class, I'm curious about when the judges
from the start. That's another scenario.
Nobody noticed it.
Yeah. That's another case.
Yeah.
Just for the records, there's a question saying for David and Karoli, the result of Y is 4 faults in the first phase, and I presume yes. Is that correct? The 4 fault remains.
Knocked down, the 4 fault remains, yes, and not go to the second phase.
All right, that is also answered. I think so far we're fine. So I believe we can go to the next question. And that should be on your screens now. Can you see number 6 on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So let me read out quickly.
Alim, if you don't mind, am I allowed to show my presentation there? That will
Sure,
also
Maria. Sure, Maria. I can just stop now and you can show yours.
I think that's a good, like that. Yes.
Yes, we can see it now.
Very good. So if you want to read it, or should I read it?
Sure, let me go ahead.
Yeah.
So the case number 6 is the following. An athlete undergoes pre-check on their hind boots as per the rules. The steward performing this duty does not make any comment and records compliance with the process. After completing the round, during the boot and bandage inspection, the stewards tell the rider the boots are not permitted. The steward advises the ground jury to apply sanctions as per the jumping regulations.
Okay, so this is the situation. I have made a few assumptions in my analysis of this case. So my first assumption is that we have two different stewards. So one steward performing the pre-competition tact check, as I call it, and we have a second, another steward performing the post-competition boot check. And it is the steward performing the post-check that discovers an illegal boot that has been used. This could in principle be either a front leg boot or a hind leg boot. Maybe that also needs to be aware that we do have, I mean, if we have illegal things in a front leg boot, and this discovered in the post-competition, then we would have had a very simple case. So at the pre-competition tact check, we actually do not inspect the boots on the front legs, just for information. Anyway, here I assume that it's hind boots that we have that are illegal, that has been discovered, because this actually happens, unfortunately, now and then. And as the group has answered, the steward is to inform the chief steward, who in turn should inform the ground jury through the liaison judge. And the ground jury will then eliminate the rider as per the Article 257.2.7. We all know that is an extremely unfortunate situation, and the rider will be very upset. Some of us have seen this, and it's not a pleasant situation, because they will always claim that the pre-competition steward, pre-competition check steward has given them an okay. But the last sentence here on the screen is that the rider is always responsible to adhere to the rules, and therefore it's the ground jury that has to issue the sanction. This is the sentence that we have to repeat, and we have to rely on that when we have a case like that. I trust that, David, you agree with me, because now I just turn to the grand jury, and I'm not the grand jury.
No,
I'm not
I
a
agree
qualified
completely.
grand jury.
Ultimately, it is the rider's responsibility.
I did want to give a caveat to this, because as a chief steward, you actually have a job description and a number of responsible tasks. So before you as a chief steward work with your team, you have actually to ensure that all your team members are up to date with the knowledge of the current FEI rules, regulations, and also of any updated steward's manual. I think this needs to be pointed out for chief steward. This is not, you can just not turn around and point your fingers at one of your team member. You as a chief steward have a considerable responsibility in how you advise your team and how you ensure that your team is up to date. And you as a chief steward, you cannot only sit back in the office, you actually need to, during the event, to be present there and to assist, and also to educate stewards that maybe are a little bit less experienced. I mean, this is how we grow on the job. But you as a chief steward have a real responsibility here. And I think sometimes we miss that the chief steward actually have a responsibility in this. So it's just to point out that it is not only the team members here that might have missed out on some late updates in the steward's manual or what could have happened, but it's actually the chief steward have a big responsibility in this. And if I remember right, Ali, the group had a very similar answer to this case. Huh?
Yes, yes, and let me just double check their response for question number 6. Result was, according to them, elimination, according to Article 257.2.7, failure to comply with any of the provisions as mentioned in the competition arena will incur elimination. Athlete is ultimately responsible for illegal or not permitted tech and equipment.
Yeah,
So they
exactly.
also concluded that there is no way running around the rules.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So let me check if there are any questions regarding this question. There was just one comment, no question, but they say, I try to document the kind of Hindboot on my list because you never know if there was a change and you didn't see. So that's a personal remark, but maybe good to know.
It's the log that each steward should keep when they perform this kind of checks.
Yes.
This is very wise. Yeah.
For the next question, if that is also inside your presentation, Maria, is it? Number 7?
Yes.
Yep. So I can read the question for everybody. This is case number 7A. An athlete appears in the warm-up area to prepare for a class. The stewards notices the bridle is not allowed. How do you handle the situation?
So here it's a very simple description. So I have done a number of assumptions when I elaborated around this. I have actually assumed that this is a children or a pony category, because it is those two categories that have very clear rules on bridle or bits, which are allowed or not allowed. If you have any of the other categories, there are very few limitations on how a bridle can be. So I just took the shortcut here and say, well, assuming it's a children class or a pony class, because then the case will not be easier, but at least there are rules on the bridle which can be.
Yep.
So when it comes to those categories, the rules regarding bit and bridles are applicable both in the warm-up as well as in the competition arena. I think this is something we need to remember when you elaborate on this, because here we talk about, on one hand, helping and preventing from a steward point of view, but we also need to consider the level playing field. And by saying that, we can actually not have the rider to warm up too much in a wrong bridle, if I dare to say. I mean, walking around, but not really warming up the horse with the wrong bridle, because then we don't have a level playing field any longer for the other riders. So here I advise the steward to take the necessary steps to prevent the rider to use the wrong tack. And for me, this should be done in principle immediately. When the wrong tack is identified, the steward shall take the steps to prevent the rider to use it. And this is for sure in the warm-up area. However, saying that we have those two categories, the children and the pony, and now I go back to this one. So any competent, experienced steward can do this and address the topic, but they need to be very careful when talk to those two categories, the children and the pony riders. First, the pony rider or children might not understand our language, so if it's English. So you need to address the rider's representative. It becomes a little bit delicate. And then, of course, if the steward don't feel confident in addressing the rider's representative, should immediately escalate this to the chief steward, who then informs the representative. I know that the group have answered a number of different if then else cases when it comes to how fast it goes and to change to the correct bridle. and whether the rider should get the later start or not. I leave that actually for that specific situation that could appear then. But going back to my first assumption here, we need to look at the help and prevent. So we don't want the rider to continue with the bridle, and also for the level playing field, looking at the other competitors that are in this class.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I'm happy to receive any feedback from either the group or from the person that actually have sort of have described the case, because it could be that my assumptions are completely wrong.
Simultaneously, I'm also checking the question and answer box where do we receive certain comments or questions. But regarding this one, Maria, so far there's no question or a comment. However, as you mentioned, we would still appreciate if there is any additional or further information regarding the case from the originator. That would be interesting to listen to more. So unless there's another question about this one, can we move to 7B?
We'll do that, which
Thank
is a
you.
little bit easier. So here we have now I have all text here, so it becomes a little bit blurry for people that would like to read it. We have the case that a horse is found outside of the FEI training area. That was the text that I received.
Yep.
My assumptions for this case is then that the steward discovered the FEI horse outside of the event venue area, which is on the outside of the event venue perimeter fence. Otherwise, we don't really have a case. So
Correct.
This is my explanation. So it's not really, yeah, so it's outside of the defined venue area. So I just look at it from the side of a steward who is carrying out the normal stable tasks. And this is typically when we would discover that there is a horse on the wrong side of the fence. And here, when we are doing stable tasks, we are actually carrying out a lot of we are carrying out support tasks for the FEI veterinarian and how the veterinarian rules are implemented. So here I am referring to the FEI veterinary rules, Article 1052, which clearly describes departure of horses from the event. So there are two cases when a horse can depart from the event. So this is what we assume that this horse has done. A horse cannot leave the event venue if it's not exceptionally authorized by the veterinary commission or veterinary delegate. And in case they are allowed to leave, then they can also be permitted to re-enter the venue. And this is all sort of depending on what has happened if they can continue to compete. So this is the last part here is a direct copy from the FEI veterinary rules, Article 1052. Just to give you a view on what the stewards are doing in the stables. So how come that I call up this? Well, the solution that comes into the area that a horse could actually be authorized to leave the venue. So the first step for the chief steward is my advice, or my solution is that the chief steward should contact the veterinary delegate to establish if
Maria,
the horse is authorized. Yes.
I'm sorry for interruption, but I think it is relevant. There was a question to say, first, we have to ask if it is a national horse or an FEI horse, but as you already highlighted in your pre-assumptions, you have already mentioned that this is an FEI horse.
Yeah.
So just to clarify this for the person asking the question.
That is an extremely valid comment, and thank you for that. My assumption is that it's an FEI horse.
Yeah, thank you.
So then we have to establish whether the horse was allowed to be outside of the venue or not. So this is what the chief steward should then do together with the veterinary delegate. And if the horse is not authorized to leave the venue, then we have a situation where we are violating the regulation. And this violation needs to be sanctioned. The veterinary rules, compared to other rule book, actually provides you a list of what kind of sanction shall be given for the various regulations, for the various violations of regulations. So you can look into the last pages of the veterinary rules. There, the veterinary rule clearly says that moving a horse outside of the venue without prior authorization, it renders disqualification. So we can all read that. And because it is this kind of sanction, we all know that the chief steward cannot disqualify the competitor. So the whole situation is then to be forwarded and discussed with the grand jury. And in principle, the grand jury is always, or is primarily responsible for issuing sanctions in the veterinary rule book. So again, David, I will hand it over to you, and it will be on your lap, and you will have to provide the sanctions. Here I advise again the chief steward to include an incident report in the chief steward report, and I expect that the corresponding will be done in the judge's report. I know that the group have in principle a similar analysis of the case. However, the group has come to a different sanction. And this may be that there is a different sanction, while I think that in this case, the grand jury need actually to justify why they don't apply the sanctions that are listed in the veterinary rule book. So now it comes over to you, David.
Well, it's unfortunate, but they are where they shouldn't be. And unfortunately, I think disqualification is correct answer.
Okay. Let me read out, if you want, I can also read out the response of the group, where actually they did say to inform the veterinarian delegate, also to inform the president of the ground jury. And as the president of the ground jury, they would give an official warning to the athlete, which Maria already mentioned that she disagrees. So in this case, disqualification seems more appropriate from you, as I understand, both of you. Is that correct?
Well, I would say from the rule book, from the veterinary rule book, they say that if you have a horse that is moved outside of the venue, the sanction is disqualification.
Disqualification.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
It also depends is it when you talk about outside of the FEI area, did they just walk across the road, a pathway to get a cup of coffee from a coffee stand, or were they riding in an unauthorized area, or were they schooling? It doesn't really say. It's kind of blank. So
no, it doesn't.
So if you're assuming you're going to assume that they're actually riding and training in another area, then I think disqualification is the appropriate penalty. But as I say, if they just walked across the pathway to talk to somebody or to get a cup of coffee from a coffee stand, who knows? I don't think I think you can find a balance there.
I fully agree with you, David. Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, we did receive 2 relevant comments regarding this one. One of them is a question, actually. Obviously, in a question like this, it is possible to elaborate further and provide new versions. One of them is probably this one. It says, if the horse is being ridden in a national warm-up arena, but not off the venue, not outside the venue perimeters. And then, in similarity to this comment, was another comment saying, I think it's from a group member, She said the group did not assume the horse was out of the venue. They assumed that it is just in the national area. So that was their assumption.
Yeah, and I mean, I then I fully agree that based on the different assumptions, you will consider what kind of sanctions would be appropriate in this case.
Mhm.
And I would agree with David that depends on where what you see in principle there. What I think is important to remember here is that the violation of the regulation in this case renders a disqualification. But if you are not sanctioned disqualification, you have a good justification for that you do something else. And that is probably one of the messages that I suggest we take away from here. There is something else that has happened, and then therefore we think that the warning is appropriate, or we hope that the coffee is nicer on that side. I
Exactly,
mean,
depending on the situation.
we need to look at the full picture, but we also need to be aware of what sanctions is there when you violate the regulation like this. So then based on that, you have that in mind, and then you justify why you don't do it like that. And I think that's logical.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments. So should we move forward to the next one?
Yeah.
Maria, I think that's again yours.
Yes. I have a short time, but I will talk the whole time.
I can read out the question if you wish.
Please.
At a competition, a steward reports a problem to the chief steward with an athlete in the training area. The chief steward speaks with the individual and issues a warning. The athlete complains to the OC, who cautions the chief steward to not interfere or disturb the athlete again if they wish to return in the future. Oh. So, is our question.
Yeah.
What would you do?
It is a delicate situation, I would say. This situation happens, and this is where it's so important that we officials stay in our role representing the FEI, all of the officials, because this will actually go beyond the chief steward's parameter, I would say.
Yeah.
Here, for me, it's clear that the organizing committee or the representative for the organizing committee has gone beyond the organizer's domain and tried to influence a qualified official in their duty and responsibility. Here at the venue, the officials group, if I say so, the president of the grand jury, the chief steward, as well as the foreign judge, needs to take action and inform the organizer about the organizer's duty and the unacceptable statement from the organizer that they issued. We can never accept this kind of statement from an organizer. So as a second term, when after we have had what you call it, education or the discussion with the organizer, both the chief steward as well as the foreign judge needs to report this in their respective reports. And those reports are there, then they are defined already. And I know here that the group that addressed this case, they have advised to use the process for the safeguarding as defined in the general rules. It is not viewed as necessary here, but the normal report that is created by the chief steward and the foreign judge could well be used for this purpose. So one thing is to address the topic immediately with the organizer, to explain for the organizer that they are beyond their parameter and their domain, and this kind of advice to the chief steward is not acceptable. If we then look at the case or the solution that the group have come up with, I can say that the process for the safeguarding as defined in these general rules is not intended for a case like what is described here in the case 8, but typically for the situation of abuse and harassment. We have a reporting line already. We don't need to use the one that is defined in the general rules.
So you're saying that firstly, our official reporting channels are already available, which
Yeah.
are going through from the chief steward and the foreign judge.
Yes.
And it is not necessarily relevant, the form that they've proposed to be used, right?
It's not relevant. No, it's not intended to be used in a case like this. I have actually been in contact with the FEI legal just to ensure that we are on the same line here, and they agree with me and confirm this. So we do have the reporting in place already, and we use that in a case like this.
Okay.
But maybe I should highlight that this is a situation like this. It does happen, and we can actually not tolerate this. And we also, oh, maybe I stop there. I think.
No, but I think you have a very good point there, Maria, but maybe this is for us to take to one step further later, maybe even organize a separate session on ethics on the site, etc., regarding the officials or through the officials. So I think you have highlighted a very important point, and we should take the time to correctly address this, maybe to our members in future, by organizing even a separate or individual session on this.
Maybe because
This is happening.
I know. I mean, I have been in similar situation, and it is. I mean, it's unfortunately, and it's not professional that it happens.
Yes.
Maybe I even dare to say what I didn't say before. Then it is that we know that sometimes we have officials at venues. They have an extremely close connection with organizers, and they could sometimes act to support the organizer in a situation like that. And especially in those situations, it is important that we are aware of the role we have. We act and we work on behalf of FEI. We are representing FEI, and that sometimes we need to step out of the friendly connection we might have with other stakeholders at the show. That is probably what I would say. I hope that message is clear.
Thank you.
Without any details, in an ideal world, hopefully in the close future, at least the key officials, but probably all the officials should be appointed by the international governing body and remunerated as well. Taken the source from the organizer.
I'm happy to hear this, Caroline. I do, however, not think that
without any details. That in my ideal world, it looks like that.
That's
I can't
excellent.
I can't imagine that Real Madrid Barcelona football match in Barcelona. The Barcelona club is inviting the officials.
No, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe
just
not.
as a very stupid example.
Yeah.
And I believe that's maybe step by step, but I hope I will live when we will reach that point. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
I think we just hit a very soft spot here, so
absolutely,
it is worthwhile to highlight or consider this later on a special session. But we would be more than happy to have you as our speakers, roundtable speakers, more than happy. But if you don't mind, let us continue with the cases. And I believe The next one should be question number 9, if I remember correctly. And this is actually, I should put this on the screen. Maria, do you have it on your presentation, or should I share it?
It's all in your hands now, Ali.
Okay, here we are. Can you see question number 9?
Ooh.
So this is obviously from a schedule, taken from a schedule. And the question is, identify any potential issue and propose solutions as the president of the ground jury. I'll just read out the qualification system as I put it on the screen. I mean, it's for you to better see, but it is mentioning the qualification into the Grand Prix for the athletes and the horses. It is a 3-star event. It is already mentioning from which classes the top placed riders should be taken for the Grand Prix. Obviously, there are certain limits to be followed, the numbers, as well as which qualification is providing what. To this end, we have asked this question to group number 9. And let me also share their response. Just 1 minute, please. So. Can you see it on the screen now? Okay. So the group is mentioning certain potential issues, first of all, regarding the FEI jumping rules, Article 261. The automatically qualified rider-horse combination can participate in the Grand Prix, even though they became eliminated or disqualified in the qualification competition. So they've already mentioned the correction point there, but then they've already mentioned potential issues. The maximum starter for the Grand Prix for the 3-star is up to 60 starters. This written in blueprint qualification is calculated to up to 100 starters. Of course, they mentioned with our English as not native people's understanding the information printed. Correction points: the number of qualified riders from each qualification classes must be changed so as to meet with the rule of maximum 60 starters. So that's their first correction request. And automatically pre-qualified riders should be referred in here. Obviously, they have mentioned that the number does not fit when they qualify more than the 60 riders. So here is their example, as you can see. So then again, they mentioned that the total qualified riders should not exceed 60 starters. Potential issues, another one. So obviously in the schedule, there were a couple of issues to be corrected according to them, according to this group. If the qualification classes for the Grand Prix were class 6 and 9 only, in the previous version of the approved schedule, there might be riders who did not know that if more than 100 starters for the classes 6 and 9, they should participate the class 1A and 1B in order to become the best 50 placed riders. And if those riders are not present on the day of the class 1A and or 1B, and just arrived on the day of the class 6 and 9, they might complain on equal fairness basis and ask for a solution for those riders. So obviously they're referring to the change at the last minute, and certain riders may not know such change about this schedule. Correction point, they mentioned, add another class for the qualification classes for the Grand Prix. This is apparently just to repatriate the current situation. And their assumption: President of the ground jury realized that these potential issues before the competition class 1A and 1B started. Solution 1. The president of the ground jury quickly contacts the organizing committee, makes the changes, and asks them to post the revised version of the schedule on their website and the app, and also told the OC to post notice of the revision on the information boards located several places in the venue immediately. The president of the ground jury will then share this information with the members of the ground jury as well. Assumption number 2. There were riders who did not know these changes, for example, should compete in class 1A or NB to obtain the eligibility to compete in class 6 or 9, if there are more than 100, and not present on the day of class 1A and 1B. Riders came and complained about this and asked to give the chance for them too. So they're improvising on that one. Solution number 2, president of the ground jury discusses with the member of the ground jury and decide. Contact the OC for negotiation and agreement. Now their proposal is negotiation and agreement with the OC. For the fairness, because it was not written in the approved schedule before, let those riders compete in class 6 and 9 on a priority basis, or add another class that those riders can participate to be one of the qualification classes for the Grand Prix. Important note they mention is to advise to the OC, president of the ground jury will tell the organizing committee that the approved schedule should not be changed in less than 2 weeks of the starting of the first competition, and also without permission from the FEI. If urgent and important and done, the OC should inform the president of the ground jury immediately and find a way to send notice to every rider. Now, obviously, this is quite a detailed and a complex situation and answer as well. Nevertheless, there are some points they wanted to clarify on the way the schedule is written. I would first highlight the number of starters, but then I would leave the floor to David and or Karoli.
Wow, this was a long one.
Yes.
First of all, mistakes are, I know for sure when you get your approved schedule back on occasion, the FEI does miss things, but you cannot, if you know that the schedule is incorrect, you can't run it contrary to what the rules state. So the rules are always take precedent over the approved schedule. So you try to adjust the schedule so it is correct according to the rules and not the OC's whims or mistakes. Whether they get to run, and I'm going to jump around here a little bit. Karoli, jump in and whenever you want, but
Yeah,
I would never run an additional class.
no.
Never. No, that you can't do that. That's wrong.
I fully agree on that. And even if you have to correct or act according to the rules against the approved schedule, try to fix it with the FEI to get it modified in the schedule and put it on the website as soon as possible.
By the way, there is one remark coming in from a member, and it says, the president of the ground jury normally, under normal conditions, receives the approved schedule early enough. Obviously, they have to read it when they receive it and not during the vet check.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. You have to be proactive. You have to be proactive. However, you can have a situation when you're just reading it at the web check. So I have seen this situation in my life already. So yeah, just fix it as soon as possible. Get it done through the FEI system, on the website, on the apps, and then act according to the rules. And as just David said, the rules are overriding the schedule. So the rules are prevail.
And I'll read an approved schedule ahead of time, and every once in a while, something will get past me. Just you're reading it and you just read over something, or you
Yes.
think it's correct and you're not really thinking, and you miss it, just like whoever approves these in the Senate. So those things happen. The
That
important
happens,
thing is
yeah.
correct. Yeah, the important thing is correct it as soon as you possibly can, and make sure you're following the rules.
Yep.
That's basically the key.
Very valid point. Let me check in case we have any questions, and I turn off this sharing. Just one moment, please. Yes, a similar comment also arrived saying the president and the foreign judge should check the schedule ahead of time and not on the day, obviously. So thank you for the same comment. This is relevant, obviously. I have been waiting for question number 3, actually, about any feedback, and unfortunately not, but if you wish, I can put up the question, David and Karoli, and we can try to comment more. I have already asked certain colleagues. By the way, maybe I can re-ask to Teresa Pires Miranda, who already mentioned that they have actually calculated and sent the results to the moderator. Maybe if it is very quick, if you can send it to me by email until we close the session, we would appreciate that, and we would be happy to review your response. Otherwise, is there any other question about the 8 questions we have covered? I'm checking the Q&A session. There is no. Maria, do you have any remarks, etc.?
Oh, not if
In the meantime, maybe we can also do about the question number 3 is I can recontact the group and share their response by email to all members, including you, later after the session, so that at least everybody has in their hands what the decision of the group was or their remark. And we can already go over this during our next General Assembly, which is in Rome in January. Another reason to come together.
Good idea.
Would that be agreed by all of our speakers?
I'm happy with that solution
Sure.
from my side.
All right. So if Glenn, if you're with us, maybe we can do some of the final closing words.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
We can
do.
hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ali, for handing over the last word, let's say, to me. I think, first of all, it was very interesting to hear also what the groups came up with as detailed discussions. And I think it's good to see and to hear that in many cases, as well, the tutors, let's say, as the groups were on the same page and had similar ideas and proposals for solutions. So that's, I think, a good thing to hear and to see.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a little bit room of improvement, and it's all about it's all about not only knowing the black and white of the rule books, but also sometimes finding the right gray area where to move in. And I refer to the example of the horse outside the FEI area. There's a difference in indeed grabbing a cup of coffee or going to ride in a separate zone somewhere on your own. So there's always a difference, and that's the reason why officials are there to assess these situations. Long story short, I would like to end with the same remark as I started by saying that I would like to thank all the participants here for their input, and especially our 3 hosts, let's say, Karoli, David and Maria. I should have started with Maria, ladies first. So sorry, Maria. But Maria, David, and Karoli, thank you very much for your help in this case. And also thank you, Ali, because I would like to highlight you as well for the ongoing effort you do to chase people with their feedback on these webinars. And I hope that everybody enjoyed it a lot and that we can build on this in the future as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.